The silver burned like hellfire. Sage screamed as the chains tightened around her wrists, searing through flesh and muscle with every agonizing breath. The metal hissed against her skin, sending plumes of acrid smoke into the cold night air. Her wolf howled inside her, thrashing against the prison of her own body, desperate to escape the torment. Welcome to another beautiful Emmy Romance Collections werewolf story. Make sure you subscribe, like, and give your comment in the comment section. But there was no escape. Keep moving, traitor. A guard shoved her forward, and Sage stumbled, her knees hitting the frozen ground. The impact sent fresh waves of agony rippling through her body. She gasped, vision swimming, and tried to rise. Strong hands yanked her upright by the chains. Another scream tore from her throat. "Please," she choked out, her voice raw and broken. "Please, I didn't do this." No one listened. The procession continued through the heart of Shadow Peak territory, past the houses where she'd grown up, past the training grounds where she'd learned to fight, past the pack members who had once called her friend. Now they lined the streets in silence, their faces carved from stone, their eyes empty of mercy. Some looked away. Most didn't. Sage's bare feet left bloody prints in the snow. Her ceremonial execution dress, white, as tradition demanded for traitors, was already stained red at the hem. The Beta's daughter, they'd once called her with respect. Now they called her murderer. Conspirator. The wolf who killed an alpha. "I didn't kill him," she screamed at the crowd, desperation clawing at her chest. "Blake did this. Blake framed me. Why won't anyone listen?" A child started crying. Her mother pulled her inside, slamming the door. The head guard jerked the chains. Sage's words dissolved into another shriek as fresh burns erupted across her wrists. Her wolf whimpered, growing weaker with every passing moment. Silver poisoning was already setting in. She could feel it spreading through her veins like ice, numbing her from the inside out. She was dying, and no one cared. The procession reached the central square where the Council of Elders waited on the raised platform. Behind them stood the new alpha, Connor. Her Connor. The man she'd loved since childhood. The man who'd promised her forever under the full moon just 3 months ago. The man who had condemned her to this. Connor stood tall and rigid in his ceremonial armor, his jaw set, his green eyes fixed on some distant point above her head. He wouldn't look at her. Hadn't looked at her since the trial. Beside him, Blake, Connor's younger brother, watched with barely concealed satisfaction. His lips curved in the ghost of a smile. Sage's heart shattered all over again. "Sage Thornwood." Elder Marcus's voice boomed across the silent square. "You have been found guilty of high treason. Guilty of conspiracy. Guilty of the murder of Alpha Roderick Blackwood. Do you have any final words before sentence is carried out?" Sage lifted her head, forcing herself to meet Connor's eyes. He flinched, but didn't look away this time. "Connor." Her voice cracked. "You know me. You've known me your whole life. I could never. Don't." The word came out sharp as a blade. Connor's jaw clenched, a muscle ticking in his cheek. "Don't say my name. Don't plead. You killed my father, Sage. You betrayed everything we had." "I didn't." Tears streamed down her face, cutting through the grime and blood. "Blake planted that evidence. The letters, the wolf's bane in my quarters, it was all him. He wanted the alpha position, Connor. He killed your father and blamed me." Blake stepped forward, his expression the perfect mask of righteous anger. "Still lying even now? Have you no shame? You know I'm telling the truth." Sage lunged toward him, but the guards held her chains tight. The silver dug deeper, and she collapsed to her knees with a sob. "You're a murderer, Blake. You killed your own father." "Enough." Elder Marcus slammed his staff against the platform. "The evidence was clear. Wolfsbane was found in your possession. Letters detailing conspiracy with the Northridge Pack were discovered in your chambers, written in your hand. You were found standing over the Alpha's body with his blood on your clothes. Because I found him dying. Sage's voice rose to a scream. I tried to save him. I tried to. The council has spoken. Marcus's tone left no room for argument. The sentence is trial by Silver. You will be taken to the Forbidden Forest, chained, and left to the mercy of the Moon Goddess. If you are innocent, she will deliver you. If you are guilty. He didn't need to finish. Everyone knew what happened to wolves left in silver chains in the Forbidden Forest. The rogues would find her. Or the silver poisoning would finish the job. Either way, she would die screaming. Sage's gaze found Connor one last time. Please, she whispered. Please don't let them do this. I love you. I would never hurt you or your family. Please. For a moment, just a heartbeat, something flickered in Connor's eyes. Doubt. Regret. Pain. Then it vanished, replaced by cold stone. You deserve every second of this pain, he said quietly. For what you did to my father. For what you did to me. I hope the silver burns slowly. The words hit harder than any physical blow. Sage stopped fighting. Stopped pleading. Something inside her, something vital and bright, simply broke. So be it, she whispered. Elder Marcus nodded to the guards. Take her to the border. Chain her to the old oak at the forest's edge. Let the Forbidden Forest claim her. The guards hauled Sage to her feet and dragged her toward the waiting horses. The crowd parted silently, their judgment complete. She caught glimpses of faces she'd known all her life, people she'd helped, trained with, laughed with. Not one spoke in her defense. Her father would have fought for her. Beta Thomas Thornwood had been Connor's father's most trusted friend, a warrior of honor and courage. But he died of a heart attack 3 days after Alpha Roderick's murder. The shock of losing his Alpha and seeing his daughter accused had killed him. Sage was alone. The journey to the Forbidden Forest took an hour. By the time they reached the border, Sage's consciousness was flickering like a candle in the wind. The silver poisoning had spread to her core. Her wolf was barely a whisper now, fading into silence. The guards chained her to the massive oak tree that marked the boundary between Packlands and the wild darkness beyond. They wrapped more silver around her torso, her ankles, her throat, ensuring she couldn't shift, couldn't run, couldn't survive. For what it's worth, one guard muttered as he secured the final chain, I never believed you did it. Then why didn't you speak? Sage wanted to scream, but she had no voice left. The guards mounted their horses and rode away without looking back. Silence descended on the forest. Sage slumped against the tree, the silver eating through her like acid. Blood soaked her white dress. Her vision blurred. Somewhere in the distance, she heard the howl of rogues, wild, mad things that killed for sport. They would find her soon. I'm sorry, Father, she whispered to the darkness. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough. Her eyes drifted closed. The Moon Goddess showed no mercy tonight. Time became meaningless. Minutes or hours, Sage couldn't tell. The pain was everything. The cold was absolute. Her heartbeat grew fainter, the spaces between each beat stretching longer and longer. This was death. She could feel it coming, dark and patient. Then, a sound. Footsteps. Heavy. Deliberate. Moving through the undergrowth with predatory grace. The rogues. They'd come. Sage forced her eyes open, determined to face her end with whatever dignity she had left. But the creature that emerged from the shadows was no rogue. It was a wolf, massive, larger than any alpha she'd ever seen. Its fur was midnight black, rippling with muscle and barely contained power. And its eyes. Silver. Pure, liquid silver that glowed in the darkness like twin moons. The wolf stalked closer, each step measured and deliberate. It stopped 3 feet away, nostrils flaring as it scented the air. Its gaze locked onto Sage's face with an intensity that stole what little breath she had left. Those eyes widened. The air itself seemed to shift. And then the wolf spoke, not in her mind through pack bonds, but aloud, its voice resonating with ancient authority that made the very ground tremble. Mate. The word hung in the frozen air like a verdict. Sage's world went black. The shift was agony. Bones cracking, reshaping, reforming. The massive black wolf's body contorted, silver eyes blazing as fur receded and human form took its place. In seconds, a man stood where the beast had been. He was towering easily 6.5 feet of pure, lethal power. Broad shoulders, muscled arms marked with intricate scars that told stories of 100 battles. His hair was black as midnight, falling to his shoulders in wild waves. But it was his face that would haunt kingdoms, sharp, brutal angles that spoke of violence and command, a jaw that could have been carved from granite, and those eyes, still that impossible liquid silver that seemed to see straight through to the soul. Alpha King Theron Silvercrest, ruler of the North Realm, the most powerful werewolf alive. And he was staring at Sage like she was the only thing that existed in the world. No, he breathed, dropping to his knees beside her. No, no, no. His hands hovered over her body, trembling the first time in 300 years his hands had shaken. The silver chains wrapped around her glowed malevolently in the moonlight, burning through flesh that should have been ash by now. She should be dead. Any other wolf would be dead. But her heart still beat. Faint. Irregular. Dying. But beating. Your silver touched, Theron whispered in awe, his fingers carefully avoiding the chains as he examined her wounds. By the moon goddess, you're actually silver-touched. The rarest bloodline in werewolf history. Born once every few centuries, if that. Wolves whose blood carried ancient magic that made them resistant, not immune, but resistant to silver's poison. They suffered, yes. They burned. But they didn't die. Not immediately. And if they survived long enough, they evolved into something far more dangerous than any alpha. Theron's wolf roared in his mind, Mate. Save her. Ours. I know, Theron growled. Shut up and let me think. He'd been hunting rogues along his northern border when her scent hit him like a physical blow. Vanilla and wildflowers and something else, something that sang to his very bones. The mate scent he'd given up on ever finding after 3 centuries alone. He'd followed it to this cursed forest, to this boundary between territories, and found her. Chained in silver. Bleeding. Broken. Left to die. Rage exploded through him, so fierce and sudden that the trees around them groaned, their branches bending away from the sheer force of his aura. The silver chains rattled against Sage's unconscious form. Who did this to you? He demanded, even though she couldn't answer. His eyes tracked over her ravaged body, the white dress soaked in blood, the burns that covered her wrists and ankles and throat, the blue tinge to her lips that spoke of advanced silver poisoning. She had hours. Maybe less. Theron made his decision in a heartbeat. By the ancient laws, I invoke the right of salvage, he announced to the empty forest, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. This wolf was found dying on my territory. She is now under my protection and jurisdiction until her debt is repaid. It was an old law rarely used, but unbreakable. Any wolf found near death on a king's land became property of that king until they chose to release them. It meant Sage's former pack had no legal claim to her anymore. It meant she was his. Theron pulled a blade from the sheath at his hip, not silver, but consecrated steel that hummed with moon magic. Carefully, precisely, he began cutting through the chains. Each piece that fell away made Sage's breathing slightly easier, but the damage was catastrophic. Stay with me, he commanded, his voice dropping to something gentler. You don't have my permission to die, little wolf. When the last chain fell, he stripped off his leather jacket and wrapped it around her trembling body. Then he lifted her with infinite care, cradling her against his chest. She weighed nothing. Too light. They'd starved her too. His rage burned hotter. Theron shifted again, his wolf form large enough to carry her on his back. He placed her carefully across his shoulders and ran, not toward her former pack's territory, but north. Toward his fortress. Toward safety. Toward home. The obsidian fortress of the North Realm rose from the mountains like a crown of black diamonds. Theron burst through the main gates in wolf form, his aura blazing with such fury that warriors scattered from his path. "Get the healers," he roared through the mind link. "Now!" He shifted mid-run, catching Sage before she could fall, and carried her straight to the healing chambers. 3 healers were already waiting, their faces pale with fear at their king's unprecedented urgency. "Save her," Theron commanded, laying Sage on the stone table. "Whatever it takes." The head healer, an ancient woman named Mora, took one look at Sage and gasped. "Your Majesty, she's been poisoned with silver. The damage is extensive." "I don't know if..." "She's silver-touched," Theron interrupted. "Her bloodline will help her survive if we can stabilize her." "Do it." Mora's eyes widened in shock, but she immediately began barking orders to her assistants. Herbs, poultices, moon water blessed under the full lunar cycle. They worked with frantic precision while Theron paced the chamber like a caged predator. His beta, Marcus Ironjaw, appeared in the doorway. "My king, what happened?" "Whose blood is that?" "Mine," Theron growled. Then corrected, "My mate's." The chamber went silent. Even the healers paused mid-motion. Marcus stared. "Your mate?" "I found her chained in silver at the southern border. Left to die." Theron's voice dropped to something deadly. "Find out which pack did this. Find out why. And find out every single wolf who participated." "Yes, Your Majesty." Marcus bowed and disappeared. Hours crawled by. The healers worked through the night, drawing out the silver poison, treating the burns, forcing healing tonics down Sage's throat. Theron refused to leave, standing vigil like a sentinel carved from stone. As dawn broke over the mountains, Mora finally stepped back, exhausted. "She'll live, Your Majesty. But the recovery will be long. Weeks, perhaps months. And there will be scars." "I don't care about scars," Theron said quietly. "As long as she breathes." "There's something else." Mora hesitated. "The silver burns should have killed her 3 times over. But her body is adapting, fighting back. I've never seen anything like it. If she truly is silver-touched, her bloodline might awaken fully during the healing process." Theron nodded. "Keep her comfortable. And guarded. No one enters this chamber without my permission." "Where will she stay after she wakes?" Theron considered. She was his mate, yes. But she didn't know that yet. And given that she'd been betrayed and left to die by wolves she'd trusted, throwing her into another position of vulnerability would be cruel. She needed to feel in control. Safe. Even if that safety was an illusion. "The obsidian dungeons," he said finally. "The high-security cells. Comfortable, but contained. She'll wake confused and likely hostile. I won't have her hurting herself trying to escape." It wasn't a lie. Just not the complete truth. The dungeons were also the most secure place in the fortress. If whoever tried to kill her came looking, they'd have to go through Theron first. And no one was getting through him. 3 days later, Sage woke to darkness. Not the darkness of death, she'd expected that, welcomed it even. But the darkness of stone walls and torchlight flickering against obsidian surfaces that drank in the light and gave nothing back. She tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain lanced through her body, sharp and bright, and everywhere. A whimper escaped her throat before she could stop it. "Easy." The voice came from the shadows, deep, commanding, unmistakably male. Sage's eyes snapped toward the sound, her damaged wolf stirring weakly inside her. A man stepped into the torchlight. Sage's breath caught. He was enormous. Not just tall, but broad, radiating power that made the very air heavy. Silver eyes, she remembered those eyes from the forest, from the wolf, regarded her with an intensity that made her feel stripped bare. "Who are you?" Her voice came out as a rasp, throat raw from screaming. "Theron Silvercrest." Alpha King of the North Realm. He moved closer, and Sage instinctively tried to scramble backward. Chains rattled, not silver, but iron, attached to a cuff around her ankle. Long enough to move freely in the cell, but not enough to escape. Easy, Theron repeated, holding up his hands. The chain is just a precaution. You're not a prisoner. Then why am I chained? Sage demanded, fear and fury warring in her chest. Because you were dying when I found you, and I needed to make sure you didn't hurt yourself when you woke. His expression was unreadable. You've been unconscious for 3 days. Your body is still healing. The memories crashed back. The execution. The chains. Connor's face. Blake's smile. The forest. You saved me. Sage's hands trembled as she looked down at herself. Clean clothes, soft, comfortable. Her wounds were bandaged. The silver burns were healing, though angry red scars remained. Why? The question came out broken. Why would you save me? Theron was quiet for a long moment. Then, because I invoked the right of salvage. You were found dying on my land, which makes you mine by ancient law. Sage's blood ran cold. Yours. Until I decide to release you, yes. Theron's silver eyes bored into hers. You owe me a life debt, little wolf. I pulled you from death's door. Fed you. Healed you. That debt must be repaid. I have nothing, Sage whispered. I am nothing. They took everything from me. Then you'll serve me until I decide the debt is settled. Theron crossed his arms. 1 year of service. After that, you're free to go wherever you wish. And if I refuse? Then I'll return you to the forest where I found you, and you can take your chances with the rogues. His voice was cold, matter of fact. Your choice, Sage Thornwood. She flinched at the sound of her name. How do you? I had my people investigate. I know who you are. Beta's daughter of the Shadow Peak Pack. Accused of murdering their alpha. Sentenced to death by Silver. Theron tilted his head. Did you do it? No. The word came out fierce, absolute. I didn't kill anyone. I was framed. By who? Blake Blackwood. The Alpha's younger son. He wanted the position, so he killed his father and blamed me. Sage's hands clenched into fists despite the pain. I tried to tell them. I begged them to listen. But no one believed me. Not even Connor. Connor Blackwood. The new Alpha. Theron's expression darkened. Your mate. Sage's head snapped up. How did you? The scent of a rejected mate bond lingers. Theron's voice was colder now. He rejected you and sentenced you to death. Tears burned Sage's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Yes. Silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. Finally, Theron spoke. You're silver-touched, Sage. Do you know what that means? She shook her head. It means you carry a bloodline that makes you resistant to silver. It's why you survived when you should have died. It's why you're valuable. He crouched down so they were eye level. If I train you, teach you to unlock your bloodline's full potential, you could become powerful enough to make them all regret what they did to you. Sage's breath caught. Why would you do that? Because I despise injustice. And because someone powerful enough to survive silver chains deserves better than dying in a frozen forest. Theron extended his hand. 1 year, Sage. Serve me. Train with me. And when your debt is paid, I'll give you the tools you need to take back everything they stole from you. Sage stared at his hand. At this stranger who'd saved her life. At the possibility of revenge burning in her chest like an ember refusing to die. She thought of Connor's cold eyes. Blake's satisfied smile. The pack that had watched in silence as she was dragged away. Sage reached out and took Theron's hand. 1 year, she agreed, her voice steady for the first time since her world had shattered. Then I'm coming for them all. Theron's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. Good. We start tomorrow. He stood and walked toward the cell door. Before leaving, he paused and looked back. One more thing, Sage. That pack thought they were executing a weak, powerless wolf. They have no idea what they've created. His silver eyes gleamed. Let's make sure they never see you coming. The door closed with a heavy thud. Sage sat alone in the darkness, her hand still tingling where Theron had touched it. For the first time since her nightmare began, she felt something other than despair. She felt hope. And beneath it, cold and patient and growing stronger by the second, she felt rage. Sage didn't sleep that first night. How could she, when every time she closed her eyes, she saw Connor's face, heard his voice, "You deserve every second of this pain." The obsidian cell was surprisingly comfortable, a real bed with soft furs, a wash basin with clean water, even a small table with bread and dried meat. Nothing like the dungeon she'd expected. But comfort didn't erase the iron cuff around her ankle or the fact that she was, once again, a prisoner. Just in a different cage. When dawn light filtered through the narrow window high above, Sage was already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, testing the limits of her healing body. The silver burns still ached, deep and persistent, but the flesh was knitting together faster than should be possible. Silver touched. Theron had called her. Sage had never heard the term before. Her father had never mentioned it. The pack elders had never spoken of such a bloodline. Was it real? Or was this just another manipulation, another alpha using her for his own purposes? The cell door opened without warning. Theron stood in the doorway, dressed in black training leathers that emphasized the lethal economy of his build. In daylight, he was even more intimidating, taller, broader, radiating the kind of power that made her wolf whimper and press low in submission. "Up," he commanded. "We have work to do." Sage stood slowly, her body protesting. "I can barely walk." "Then you'll learn to fight through pain." Theron's expression was unreadable. "Weakness gets you killed. You should know that better than anyone." The words hit like a slap, but Sage lifted her chin. "I'm not weak." "Prove it." He tossed something at her, a bundle of leather. "Change. You have 5 minutes." He left without another word. Sage unfolded the bundle with shaking hands. Training clothes, fitted leather pants, a sleeveless tunic, soft boots designed for agility. All in black, all perfectly sized for her frame. He'd prepared for this. For her. She dressed quickly, ignoring the way her muscles screamed in protest. When she emerged from the cell, a guard waited to unlock her ankle cuff. He said nothing, just gestured for her to follow. They walked through corridors of black stone that seemed to absorb sound itself. The North Realm fortress was a labyrinth of sharp angles and shadowed alcoves, built for defense and intimidation in equal measure. Warriors passed them in the halls, massive wolves, both men and women, who moved with the fluid grace of born killers. Every single one of them paused when they saw Sage. She felt their eyes on her, assessing, judging. The whispers started immediately. "Is that her? The one the king brought back? She doesn't look like much. Must be why her pack tried to kill her." Sage's hands clenched into fists, but she kept walking. Let them whisper. Let them doubt. She'd heard worse from people she actually cared about. The guard led her outside to a massive training yard carved into the mountain itself. Stone pillars rose like sentinels around the perimeter. Weapon racks lined the walls, swords, axes, staffs, every instrument of violence imaginable. And in the center, waiting with arms crossed, stood Theron. "You're late," he said as Sage approached. "You gave me 5 minutes. It's been 4. Something that might have been approval flickered in his silver eyes. "You can tell time." "Good. That's more than most recruits manage on their first day." "I'm not a recruit," Sage shot back. "I'm paying a debt. You're whatever I say you're until that debt is paid." Theron gestured to the open space beside him. "Stand here." Sage obeyed, her heart pounding. Up close, Theron's presence was overwhelming, his scent of pine and winter storms, the heat radiating from his skin, the coiled violence in every line of his body. "Before we begin training," Theron said, his voice dropping to something quieter, almost intimate, "you need to understand exactly what you are, Sage Thornwood." He began to circle her slowly, like a predator assessing prey. The silver-touched bloodline is ancient. Older than the moon goddess herself, some say. Born from the first wolves who walked the earth when silver was still forming in the ground, still wild and untamed. He stopped in front of her. Normal wolves burn when silver touches them because their bodies recognize it as poison. But silver-touched wolves? Your blood remembers when silver was part of the world's creation. Part of your creation. Sage's breath caught. That's impossible. Is it? Theron held up his hand, and Sage gasped as silver mist began to materialize around his fingers. Actual silver, forming from nothing, twisting into shapes like living metal. I'm descended from the ancient Silvercrest line. We can manipulate silver, bend it to our will. It's how my family has ruled the North for 1,000 years. The silver mist dissolved back into air. You have the same potential, Theron continued. Maybe more. Your body already proved it by surviving chains that should have killed you in minutes. But survival is just the beginning. If you train, if you push past the pain and fear, you can learn to wield silver as a weapon instead of being its victim. Hope flared in Sage's chest, bright and terrifying. You can teach me that? I can teach you to be unstoppable. Theron's silver eyes bored into hers. But it won't be easy. The awakening process is brutal. You'll wish for death more than once. And there's no guarantee you'll survive it. What are the odds? For a normal wolf attempting to awaken a dormant bloodline? Theron's expression was grim. 1 in 10 survives. But you've already proven you're not normal. You survived silver poisoning that would have killed an alpha in seconds. So I'd say your odds are better. 60-40 maybe. 60% I live, 60% you die. Theron didn't soften the blow. But if you survive, Sage, you become something they can never prepare for. Something they can never stop. Sage thought of Blake's smirk. Connor's cold dismissal. The pack's silent judgment. What do I have to do? She asked. First, you train your body. Build strength, speed, endurance. You're too weak right now. 3 days ago you were dying. We need you at peak physical condition before we attempt the awakening. How long will that take? Months. Maybe 6. Maybe a year. A year. The exact length of her debt. Sage's eyes narrowed. You planned this from the beginning. I planned to save your life, Theron corrected. What you do with that life is your choice. But yes, I knew what you were the moment I saw you. And I knew what you could become. Why? Sage demanded. Why do you care what happens to me? You don't know me. I'm nothing to accept. She stopped abruptly, realization dawning. Theron had called her mate in the forest. She'd been barely conscious, drowning in pain, but she remembered his voice. Mate. That's why, she whispered. Isn't it? You felt the mate bond. Theron's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes too fast to identify. Yes. The simple admission hit like a physical blow. Sage stumbled back a step. No, she breathed. No, I can't, I won't. I'm not asking you to accept it, Theron interrupted, his voice hard. In fact, I'm not asking you for anything except to honor your debt. Train with me for 1 year. Let me help you unlock your potential. What happens after that, whether you choose to acknowledge the bond or reject it, is entirely your decision. Sage's mind reeled. Another mate. Another alpha claiming her. Another. I won't be used again, she said fiercely. I won't be some political pawn or convenient Luna or... You think I need a political alliance? Theron's laugh was sharp, humorless. I'm the Alpha King, Sage. I ruled 12 packs across the North Realm. I've lived for 300 years and never taken a mate because I never needed one. If I wanted power or heirs or political advantage, I could have had them centuries ago. He stepped closer, and Sage's back hit one of the stone pillars. I saved you because my wolf recognized you as mate. Yes, Theron continued, his voice dropping to something dangerous. But I'm not some lovesick pup begging for your acceptance. You owe me a life debt. You'll serve me for 1 year, train under my command, and obey my orders. After that, he shrugged. You can walk away. Reject the bond. Go anywhere in the world. I won't stop you. You'd let me reject you? Sage searched his face for the lie. I'd rather have no mate than one forced to stand beside me. Theron's silver eyes burned into hers. But Sage, understand this. I will make you powerful. Strong enough to take back everything they stole. And when you walk away from here, every wolf who wronged you will learn what a mistake they made. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the wind howling through the mountain peaks. Finally, Sage asked the question burning in her chest, what if I don't want to walk away? After the year, what if she couldn't finish? Couldn't voice the possibility that terrified her more than death? What if she fell for another alpha who would eventually break her? Theron's expression softened, just barely, just enough to seem almost human. Then we'll deal with that when the time comes. But right now, you're not ready for that choice. You're still bleeding from wounds that have nothing to do with silver chains. He was right. She knew he was right. Connor's betrayal was too fresh. The pain too raw. She couldn't think about mates or bonds or futures that might never exist. All she could think about was revenge. Teach me, Sage said, her voice steady despite the chaos in her heart. Make me strong enough to destroy them. Theron smiled, a real smile this time, sharp and predatory and somehow beautiful. Now we're getting somewhere. He moved to the weapon rack and selected 2 wooden staffs, tossing one to Sage. She caught it clumsily, her muscles still weak. Lesson 1, Theron said, settling into a fighting stance. Pain is just information. Your body telling you where your limits are. We're going to teach your body that its limits are lies. How? Theron's smile widened. By breaking them. He attacked without warning, a blur of motion too fast to track. The staff slammed into Sage's ribs, and she went down hard, gasping. Get up, Theron commanded. Sage struggled to her feet, wheezing. He attacked again. Same result. Get up. Again. And again. And again. By the time the sun reached its zenith, Sage had been knocked down 37 times. Her body was a map of bruises. Blood trickled from her split lip. Every breath was agony. But she kept getting up. Because somewhere deep inside, beneath the pain and fear and broken pieces of who she used to be, something new was taking root. Something cold and fierce and absolutely unbreakable. Theron paused, breathing normally while Sage gasped for air and nodded once. Good. Tomorrow we do it again. Tomorrow. Sage could barely stand. Every day for the next 6 months. Theron's silver eyes gleamed with approval. Welcome to hell, little wolf. Hope you survive it. As he walked away, Sage collapsed to her knees in the dirt, shaking with exhaustion. But she was smiling. Because for the first time since her world ended, she had a purpose. Shadow Peak Pack had tried to bury her. They had no idea they'd planted a seed. And when she bloomed, she would be their reckoning. Sage's brutal training has begun. Can her broken body survive 6 months of the Alpha King's merciless regime? What will happen when her bloodline finally awakens? And does Theron have a hidden agenda beyond the mate bond? 3 months later. The staff whistled through the air where Sage's head had been a heartbeat before. She ducked, rolled, came up swinging. Her own staff cracked against Theron's ribs, a solid hit that would have dropped a normal wolf. Theron didn't even flinch. Better, he acknowledged, circling her with predatory grace. You're actually making me work now. Sage grinned, feral and fierce. Just wait. She feinted left, then spun right, her staff arcing toward his knee. Theron blocked, but she'd anticipated that, used his own momentum to vault over his shoulder and slam her staff toward the back of his head. He caught it one-handed without looking. Predictable, Theron said, yanking the staff and pulling Sage off balance. She stumbled, and he swept her legs out from under her. Sage hit the ground hard, but rolled immediately, coming up in a defensive crouch. Her chest heaved, sweat streaming down her face, muscles screaming in protest. But she was smiling. 3 months ago, that first combination would have been impossible. 3 months ago, she could barely stand for more than 10 minutes without collapsing. 3 months ago, She was a broken wolf left to die in a frozen forest. Now she was something else entirely. Again, Sage demanded, already moving. Theron's eyebrow arched. You can barely stand. I said again. Something flickered in his silver eyes, pride, maybe, or satisfaction. He settled back into his fighting stance. Your funeral. They clashed like thunder, wood cracking against wood, their movements a deadly dance that had become as familiar as breathing. Sage had learned to read Theron's tells, the slight shift of his weight before a strike, the way his eyes tracked her movements, the rhythm of his breathing. She'd also learned that knowing his tells and being fast enough to counter them were two very different things. His staff slammed into her shoulder. Pain exploded through her arm, and Sage's grip faltered. The staff fell from her numb fingers. Theron's next strike stopped a hairbreadth from her throat. Dead, he announced. Sage glared at him, panting. Best 2 out of 3? You've lost 17 consecutive rounds today, Sage. I think you're done. I'm not. You're done, Theron repeated, his voice carrying the weight of absolute command. Go eat. Rest. We resume at dawn. Sage wanted to argue, but her body chose that moment to betray her. Her knees buckled, and she barely caught herself before face-planting into the dirt. Theron was there instantly, his hand gripping her elbow, steadying her. The touch sent electricity racing across Sage's skin, that damned mate bond that neither of them acknowledged but both felt constantly. It had been growing stronger over the months, a low hum beneath every interaction, every training session, every moment they spent together. Sage jerked away. I'm fine. You're exhausted. Theron's grip tightened for a moment before he released her. There's a difference between pushing your limits and being reckless. Learn it. He turned and walked toward the weapon racks, dismissing her. Sage stood there, frustration warring with exhaustion, and watched him go. 3 months of training under the Alpha King had transformed her body. She was lean muscle and coiled power now, faster and stronger than she'd ever been. The silver burns had faded to thin white scars that she wore like war paint. But it wasn't enough. It would never be enough until she could beat him. Until she could stand against any alpha and not be afraid. Until she could face Connor without her heart breaking all over again. Sage. She turned to find Marcus Ironjaw, Theron's beta, approaching across the training yard. The massive warrior had become something like a friend over the past months, gruff, taciturn, but with a dry sense of humor that occasionally broke through. His Majesty wants you in the library after you've cleaned up, Marcus said. Something about your bloodline awakening. Sage's pulse quickened. He thinks I'm ready? He thinks you're close. Your body's adapted to the baseline training. Now comes the hard part. Marcus's expression was grim. I've seen 3 wolves attempt the silver-touched awakening in my 200 years. Only one survived. Great. Love those odds. The one who survived became the 3rd most powerful wolf in the North Realm. Marcus's eyes were serious. The 2 who didn't, it wasn't a peaceful death, Sage. The silver burns from the inside out. If your bloodline doesn't awaken fast enough to counter it, you'll... I know, Sage interrupted. Theron explained. 60-40 chance I die screaming. And you're still willing to try? Sage thought of Blake's satisfied smirk as they dragged her away. Thought of Connor's cold eyes watching her burn. Thought of an entire pack that stayed silent while she screamed for mercy. Yes, she said simply. Marcus studied her for a long moment, then nodded. You've got fire, girl. Let's hope it's enough. An hour later, scrubbed clean and dressed in fresh training leathers, Sage found herself in the fortress library, a massive chamber carved entirely from black crystal that reflected torchlight like captured stars. Books lined every surface, scrolls stacked in careful order, ancient texts that smelled of leather and time. Theron stood at the center table, surrounded by open books and scattered papers. He looked up as she entered. Sit, he commanded, gesturing to the chair across from him. Sage sat, curiosity burning. Marcus said, I've been researching the awakening process, Theron interrupted, his fingers tapping against an ancient tome. The texts are complicated. The last recorded silver-touched awakening was 400 years ago. The wolf survived, but went mad from the pain. Killed half her pack before they put her down. I know you are carefully following through. Do well to click the subscribe button and like the video. You're really selling this, Sage said dryly. Theron's lips twitched. I'm being honest. The awakening is brutal because it requires flooding your system with silver, the very thing that should kill you. Your bloodline has to recognize the silver as part of you, absorb it, transform it. If it doesn't, he shrugged. I burn from the inside out. I know. What you don't know is what happens if you survive. Theron slid a leather journal across the table. Read. Sage opened the journal carefully. The pages were yellowed with age, filled with cramped handwriting that took effort to decipher. But as she read, her eyes widened. The silver-touched who survived the awakening gain abilities beyond any normal alpha. They can manipulate silver in its pure form, shape it, control it, weaponize it. They become immune to silver's poison. And in rare cases, they can sever the mate bonds of others with a touch, or strip an alpha of their power permanently. Sage looked up sharply. Strip an alpha of their power? The ultimate revenge weapon, Theron said quietly. Imagine walking into Shadow Peak Pack and rendering Connor completely human with a single touch. No wolf. No strength. No alpha authority. Just mortal. The image was intoxicating. Connor, stripped of everything that made him powerful, forced to live as the weakest thing in a pack hierarchy. Poetic justice for what he'd done to her. When? Sage asked. When can we attempt the awakening? 2 more months of training, Theron said. Your body needs to be at absolute peak condition. The stronger you are going in, the better your chances of surviving. 2 months, Sage repeated, frustration leaking into her voice. That's 5 months total. I've been here for 3 already. And you've made remarkable progress. Theron's gaze was steady. But rushing this will get you killed. I won't allow that. You won't allow. Sage stood abruptly, anger flaring. I'm not yours to command, Theron. I'm paying a debt, yes, but that doesn't give you the right to. Doesn't it? Theron rose to his full height, power radiating from him in waves. You give me 1 year of service, Sage. That means I decide what's best for your training. I decide when you're ready. And I decide whether the risk is worth it. Why do you even care? The words burst out before Sage could stop them. If I die during the awakening, your debt is paid. You're free of the mate bond you clearly don't want. So why not just let me try now and be done with it? The library went silent. Theron's silver eyes burned into hers with an intensity that stole her breath. You think I don't want the mate bond? His voice was dangerously quiet. You've never acknowledged it. Never mentioned it except that first day. You treat me like any other warrior in your ranks. Because that's what you need, Theron interrupted, moving around the table with predatory grace. You were betrayed by the last alpha who claimed you. Broken by a mate who should have protected you. Do you think I'm cruel enough to push another bond on you before you've healed? Sage took a step back. He kept coming. I've watched you fight through pain every single day for 3 months, Theron continued, his voice rough with suppressed emotion. Watched you get stronger, fiercer, more beautiful with every passing week. Watched you transform from a broken wolf into a warrior who could bring alphas to their knees. Another step back. Her shoulders hit the bookshelf. Theron stopped a foot away, so close she could feel the heat radiating from his skin, smell the pine and winter storm scent that made her wolf purr with longing. You want to know why I care if you survive? Theron's hand came up, his fingers hovering a hair-breadth from her cheek. Because you're mine, Sage Thornwood. Not because of a life debt or ancient laws or political advantage. Mine because the moon goddess herself bound us together. Mine because every instinct I have screams to protect you, claim you, keep you safe. Sage's heart hammered against her ribs. Then why? Because I'm 300 years old, and I know the difference between possession and partnership. Theron's hand dropped. I won't claim you while you're still bleeding from wounds another alpha gave you. I won't take advantage of your vulnerability or your need for revenge. When you accept this bond, if you ever accept it, it will be because you want me, not because you need me. The words hit like a physical blow. All these months, Sage had assumed Theron's distance was rejection. That he felt the mate bond but didn't want it, didn't want her. But this was worse. This was restraint. Patience. A predator holding itself back with iron will because it cared more about her healing than its own desires. I don't know what to say, Sage whispered. Say you'll survive the next 2 months, Theron said roughly. Say you'll let me make you strong enough to take back everything they stole. Say you'll trust me that much, at least. Sage looked into those silver eyes and saw the truth there, the hunger, yes, but also the genuine care. The protective fury that had driven him to save her in the first place. The hope that maybe, eventually, she could be whole enough to choose him freely. It terrified her. But it also made something warm bloom in her chest for the first time since Connor's betrayal. 2 more months, Sage agreed quietly. Then we attempt the awakening. And Theron. Yes. Thank you. She gestured helplessly. For this. For giving me time. Theron's expression softened. You're worth waiting for, little wolf. He stepped back, the moment breaking, and returned to his books. Now get out of here. You have dawn training in 6 hours, and if you're late, I'm adding 10 miles to your run. Sage fled before he could see her blush. That night, lying in her comfortable cell, which had gradually become more room than prison over the months, Sage couldn't sleep. 2 more months until the awakening. 2 more months of brutal training and growing tension with the Alpha King, who watched her with hunger and patience in equal measure. 2 more months until she became either powerful enough to destroy her enemies or dead. Sage stared at the ceiling and made herself a promise. She would survive. Not just for revenge, though that fire still burned bright and fierce. But also because somewhere along the way, she'd started to believe she deserved to survive. That she was worth more than the pack that threw her away had claimed. That she could be something other than a victim or a weapon. Maybe even something like whole. 6 weeks later. Touch it. Sage stared at the silver dagger on the stone table between them. Even from 3 feet away, she could feel it calling to her blood, not painful anymore, but magnetic. Hungry. Theron, I don't think. We're testing your resistance, Theron said, his silver eyes locked on her face. Your body's been healing from silver exposure for almost 5 months now. Your bloodline should have adapted enough to tolerate brief contact. But we need to know for certain before we attempt the full awakening. Sage's hand trembled as she reached toward the dagger. 6 weeks ago, this would have been impossible. 6 weeks ago, the mere sight of silver made her wolf howl with remembered agony. But now? Now her fingers closed around the hilt. The silver was cold, not burning, just cold. Sage gasped as power rushed through her, foreign and familiar all at once. The metal seemed to pulse in her grip, responding to something in her blood. How does it feel? Theron demanded, moving closer. Like it's singing, Sage whispered. I can feel it, Theron. Not pain, but potential. Like the silver is waiting for me to tell it what to do. Theron's face split into a fierce grin. Your bloodline is awakening on its own. Slowly, yes, but awakening. This is good, Sage. This means when we flood your system with silver, you'll have a foundation to build on. Sage looked up at him, hope and terror warring in her chest. When? 2 weeks, Theron said. We'll do it on the full moon when your wolf is strongest. That gives you the best chance of survival. 2 weeks. 14 days until she either became unstoppable or died screaming. The silver was ice-cold going down, coating her throat, sliding into her stomach like frozen mercury. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the pain hit. Sage's scream shattered the chamber's silence. It felt like her insides were crystallizing, every cell in her body turning to ice and fire simultaneously. The silver spread through her bloodstream like poison, racing toward her heart, her lungs, her brain. Her wolf howled in agony, trying to retreat into the depths of her consciousness. No, Sage screamed internally. Stay with me. We do this together. The chalice fell from her hands, clattering against stone. Sage collapsed to her knees, convulsing. Blood poured from her nose, her ears. The white linen dress turned crimson. Theron! Marcus's voice, distant and distorted. Her heart stopping. Hold the circle, Theron commanded. He dropped to his knees in front of Sage, gripping her face between his hands. Look at me, Sage. Look at me. She couldn't. The pain was everything. The world was dissolving into silver agony. I'm opening the bond. Theron's voice cut through the haze. Let me in. The mate bond exploded between them. Suddenly Sage wasn't alone in her suffering. Theron's presence flooded her consciousness, not taking the pain away, but sharing it. Anchoring her. His strength became her strength. His will became her foundation. You're not dying here. Theron's voice resonated in her mind, fierce and absolute. You're going to survive this, Sage. You're going to become unstoppable. Fight. Sage latched onto his presence like a drowning woman finding shore. Through the bond, she felt his absolute certainty, his unwavering belief that she would survive. And beneath it all, she felt something else. Love. Raw, powerful, unconditional love that had been growing for 5 months, carefully hidden behind duty and patience and restraint. Theron had fallen for her completely, not the broken wolf he'd found in the forest, but the warrior she'd become. The fierce, determined survivor who refused to stay down no matter how many times the world knocked her flat. The realization gave Sage something to fight for beyond revenge. She had someone who believed in her. Someone who saw her worth even when she couldn't see it herself. More, Sage gasped through the bond. I need more silver. Are you insane? Theron's mental voice was sharp with fear. It's killing you. It's awakening me. I can feel it. More. Theron hesitated for only a heartbeat. Then he grabbed the fallen chalice and brought it to her lips. Drink. Sage drank the rest. The pain doubled, tripled, became something beyond pain, a fundamental rewriting of her very existence. The silver reached her heart and exploded outward. She felt her bloodline activate. It started as a pulse, her heart beating pure silver instead of blood. Then her veins lit up, glowing beneath her skin like lightning trapped in flesh. The silver that should have been poison was transforming into power, integrating with her cells, becoming part of her fundamental nature. Sage's back arched, and she screamed again, but this time it wasn't just pain. It was transformation. Her eyes flew open, and they were glowing brilliant blue-white, brighter than any wolf's eyes should be. Power radiated from her in waves, making the warriors in the circle stumble back. Hold! Theron commanded them, though his hands shook where they gripped Sage's shoulders. Through the bond, she felt his awe, his terror, his fierce pride. The runes on the chamber walls blazed to life, responding to the power coursing through Sage's body. The very air crackled with energy. Then, with a final surge that felt like her soul catching fire, the awakening completed. Sage's scream cut off abruptly. Silence fell across the chamber. She knelt there, panting, her entire body glowing with silver light that slowly faded. The blood on her dress evaporated into silver mist. The wounds on her skin healed in seconds, leaving not even scars. When Sage opened her eyes, they were still glowing, but softer now, controlled. She looked at her hands. Silver light danced across her palms like living mercury, responding to her thoughts. She could feel it now, the silver in the torches, in the weapons of the warriors, in the very stone of the mountain itself. All of it connected to her, waiting for her command. Sage, Theron's voice was rough with emotion. Are you? She looked up at him, and the mate bond between them sang with recognition. For the first time since Connor's betrayal, Sage felt whole. I'm alive, she whispered, wonder filling her voice. Theron, I can feel everything. The silver, the power, she broke off, overwhelmed. Theron pulled her into his arms, crushing her against his chest. Through the bond, Sage felt his relief, his joy, his fierce possessiveness. You did it, he sent through the bond. You survived. We survived, Sage corrected, holding him just as tightly. I couldn't have done it without you. Around them, the 12 warriors dropped to one knee in synchronized respect, acknowledging what they'd just witnessed. The birth of a silver-touched wolf, the first in 400 years. Marcus's voice broke the reverent silence. Your Majesty. Her power signature, it's stronger than the records indicated. Stronger than any silver-touched in recorded history. Theron pulled back enough to study Sage's face, his silver eyes searching hers. How do you feel? Different. Powerful. Sage flexed her fingers, and silver light sparked between them. I can feel the connection to metal everywhere. It's like having a sixth sense. She paused, testing her new awareness. There's a silver dagger hidden in Marcus's boot. Another in the north-facing warrior's belt. And you, she focused on Theron. You have silver rings woven into your bones. Old magic. Theron's eyebrows rose. The Silvercrest family secret. No one outside our bloodline knows that. I can feel it. All of it. Sage stood slowly, testing her balance. Her body felt lighter, stronger, like she was made of compressed lightning instead of flesh and bone. What else can I do? We'll test your abilities over the next few days, Theron said, though his eyes were still drinking in the sight of her. But the primary powers of silver-touched wolves are manipulation of silver in all forms, immunity to silver poisoning, and he paused. The ability to sever supernatural bonds. Sage's breath caught. Mate bonds. Mate bonds. Pack bonds. The bond between an alpha and their wolf. Theron's expression was serious. With a touch, you could strip Connor of his alpha power. Make him completely human. The thought sent dark satisfaction through Sage's chest. Connor, powerless. Connor, stripped of everything that made him strong. Connor, forced to feel a fraction of the helplessness he'd inflicted on her. Show me, Sage said, her voice cold. Theron shook his head. Not yet. Your power is raw, untrained. If you try to sever a bond right now, you might kill the wolf instead of just stripping their power. We need to teach you control first. How long? Weeks. Maybe a month. Theron gestured to the warriors. Dismissed. Tell no one what happened here tonight. This remains between us until I say otherwise. The warriors bowed and filed out, leaving Sage and Theron alone in the chamber. The moonlight streaming through the open ceiling painted everything silver, making it feel like they stood in a different world entirely. Why the secrecy? Sage asked. Because you're a weapon now, Sage. The kind that kingdoms go to war over. Theron moved closer, his hand coming up to cup her cheek. If word spreads that a silver-touched wolf exists, one powerful enough to strip alphas of their power, every pack in the continent will either want to control you or kill you. We keep this quiet until you're ready to defend yourself. Sage leaned into his touch, the mate bond humming contentedly between them. 5 months ago, she would have flinched away. 5 months ago, she couldn't imagine trusting another alpha with anything, let alone her life. But Theron had earned that trust. Had proven over and over that he valued her strength more than her submission. Her healing more than his own desires. I felt it, Sage said softly. During the awakening. Through the bond. What you feel for me. Theron's hand stilled against her cheek. Sage, don't apologize. Don't explain. She reached up, covering his hand with hers. I felt it, and it terrified me. Because I don't know if I can give you that back. Connor broke something in me, Theron. I don't know if I'll ever be whole enough to love like that again. I'm not asking you to love me, Theron said, though pain flickered in his silver eyes. I told you before, when you accept this bond, if you ever accept it, it will be because you want to. Not because you feel obligated or grateful or... Sage rose on her toes and kissed him. It wasn't tentative or unsure. It was fierce, claiming, a collision of mouths and breath and 5 months of denied tension finally breaking free. Theron froze for a heartbeat, shocked, then made a sound low in his throat and kissed her back. His arms banded around her waist, pulling her flush against him. The mate bond exploded with sensation, want and need, and the kind of hunger that had been carefully leashed for months finally breaking free. Sage's hands fisted in his hair, her new power crackling between them like static electricity. She could feel the silver in his bones responding to her, singing in harmony with her own power. They broke apart gasping, foreheads pressed together. That wasn't gratitude, Sage whispered. Or obligation. What was it? Theron's voice was rough, his control hanging by a thread. I don't know yet. Sage pulled back enough to meet his eyes. I don't know if I can love you the way you deserve. I don't know if I'll ever be ready to complete this bond. But I know I'm not afraid of you. I know I trust you. And I know that when you held me through the awakening, I wanted to survive, not just for revenge, but for this. For the possibility of this. Theron's expression softened. That's enough. For now, that's more than enough. Is it? Sage searched his face. You've waited 300 years for a mate, Theron. You deserve someone who can give you everything, not someone who's still. He kissed her again, softer this time, achingly gentle. I deserve you, Theron said when they parted. Broken pieces and all. And you deserve time to heal without pressure, without expectations. So we take this at your pace, Sage. No rush. No demands. Just us. Learning what this could be. Sage felt something in her chest crack open, not breaking, but blooming. Like a flower that had been frozen finally feeling sunlight again. Okay, she whispered. Us. Theron smiled, a real smile, rare and beautiful and just for her. Now come on. You need to eat and rest. Awakening a dormant bloodline takes a toll even on silver-touched wolves. As if on cue, Sage's stomach growled loudly. She laughed, surprised by the sound. How long had it been since she'd laughed genuinely? Too long. Theron kept his arm around her waist as they left the awakening chamber, and Sage let him. Let herself lean into his strength instead of always standing alone. Maybe she could have both. Revenge and healing. Power and connection. Justice and something that felt dangerously close to happiness. Sage stood in the training yard at dawn, silver daggers floating around her in a precise orbit. She didn't touch them, didn't need to. Her power controlled them with thought alone, spinning them in complex patterns that would have taken years to master with physical training. She'd been practicing control for weeks now, learning the limits of her power, testing what she could do with silver in all its forms. Yesterday, she'd melted down a sword and reformed it into intricate armor in under 30 seconds. Today, she was ready for something harder. You're sure about this? Marcus asked, standing 10 feet away with a shield made of consecrated wood, one of the few materials that could resist her silver manipulation. I need to know if I can do it without killing, Sage said, her focus absolute. If I'm going to use this power for revenge, I need surgical precision. Not a massacre. Marcus sighed. His Majesty is going to kill me for agreeing to this. Theron knows I need to practice on a living subject. Sage glanced at the beta. Unless you're too afraid? I've survived 200 years of battle, girl. I'm not afraid of a little. Sage struck. Her power lashed out, targeting the bond between Marcus and his wolf. She could see it now with her awakened senses, a silver thread connecting his human consciousness to his wolf spirit, allowing them to shift and communicate. She touched that thread with her power and pulled. Marcus gasped, his eyes going wide. For a moment, his wolf presence vanished completely, cut off from him as cleanly as severing a rope. He stumbled, his face draining of color. Then Sage released her hold, and the bond snapped back into place. Marcus collapsed to his knees, panting. Moon Goddess. I couldn't feel my wolf. At all. It was like she didn't exist. Sage's hands trembled slightly. She'd done it. Actually severed the bond temporarily without causing permanent damage. How long was it cut? 3 seconds. Maybe 4. Marcus looked up at her with newfound respect and a hint of fear. But it felt like an eternity. If you'd held it longer, would you have died? Eventually. The wolf and human halves need each other to survive. Cut the bond permanently, and both sides slowly die. Marcus stood slowly, testing his connection to his wolf. You really could strip Connor of his alpha power. Make him human. And he'd die within a year from the separation. The dark satisfaction Sage had felt before was tempered now by the reality of what she could do. This power wasn't just revenge, it was the ability to fundamentally destroy what made werewolves who they were. It was terrifying. It was exactly what she needed. Again, Sage said, I need to practice holding the severance for longer without permanent damage. They trained for another hour, Sage learning to control the duration and intensity of her bond-severing ability. By the time Theron arrived in the training yard, she could hold Marcus's bond severed for up to 30 seconds before releasing it safely. You're playing with fire, Theron said, his expression unreadable. I'm learning control, Sage corrected. There's a difference. Theron studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Show me. Sage's eyes widened. Theron, you're an alpha king. The bond between you and your wolf is probably 10 times stronger then. Show me, he repeated, moving to stand where Marcus had been. I need to know what you're capable of. And you need to know if you can affect an alpha of my power level. Sage's heart raced. This was different from Marcus. Theron was ancient, powerful, with a connection to his wolf that had been refined over 3 centuries. If she accidentally severed it permanently. I trust you, Theron said quietly, his silver eyes locked on hers. You won't hurt me, Sage. Sage took a deep breath and reached out with her power. Theron's bond was massive, not a thread but a cable, thick and reinforced with centuries of strength. It took more effort to even touch it, let alone cut through it. She pushed harder, focusing all her power on one point. The bond resisted. Held. Then. Snap. Theron's eyes went black as his wolf vanished. His knees buckled, and for the first time since she'd met him, the Alpha King looked vulnerable. Mortal. Sage held the severance for 5 seconds, then released it. The bond slammed back together with enough force to make Theron stagger. His eyes flashed silver, then returned to normal. He straightened slowly, his breathing ragged. By the moon goddess, he muttered. That was... I'm sorry. Did I hurt you? No. Theron rolled his shoulders, testing his connection. But that feeling, being cut off from my wolf, I've never experienced anything like it in 300 years. It was like half of my soul disappeared. That's what I'll do to Connor, Sage said, her voice hard. I'll make him feel what it's like to lose everything that makes him who he is. Theron walked over to her, cupping her face between his hands. Are you sure that's what you want? Once you do this, there's no going back. You'll have blood on your hands, maybe not directly, but Connor will die from the separation eventually. Can you live with that? Sage thought of Connor's cold eyes watching her burn. His voice, you deserve every second of this pain. Yes, she said without hesitation. He chose my death. I'm just returning the favor. Theron searched her face for a long moment, then nodded. Then we plan your return to Shadow Peak. But we do it my way, with an army at your back and legal authority that no pack can question. I won't have you walking into danger without protection. When? 2 more weeks. I need to formalize your position as my emissary and gather the warriors. Theron's expression turned predatory. And Sage? When we arrive at Shadow Peak Pack, we're going to make sure everyone knows exactly who you've become. Sage's lips curved into a cold smile. The wolf they tried to bury. No, Theron corrected, his voice filled with fierce pride. The queen they created. Sage has awakened her silver-touched power and can now strip alphas of their strength. The mate bond with Theron is growing stronger. And in 2 weeks, she returns to Shadow Peak Pack, not as a victim, but as an unstoppable force. Connor and Blake have no idea what's coming for them. Sage stood on the balcony of her chambers, no longer a cell, but actual quarters befitting someone of status, watching the sun set over the northern mountains. The view was breathtaking, jagged peaks painted gold and crimson, valleys filled with shadow, the wild beauty of a realm carved by ice and time. She'd come so far from the broken wolf left to die in chains. Behind her, the door opened without warning. She didn't need to turn to know who it was. The mate bond sang with recognition, warm and insistent. "You've been avoiding me," Theron said, his voice carrying across the space between them. Sage's hands tightened on the stone railing. "I've been training. For 16 hours straight. Marcus said you barely eat anymore. You don't sleep." Theron moved closer, and she felt the heat of him at her back. "What's wrong, Sage?" "Everything. Nothing." The fact that in 4 days, she'd returned to Shadow Peak and face the wolves who'd destroyed her. The fact that her power was growing stronger every day, and with it, the darkness of what she planned to do. The fact that every time she looked at Theron, she felt the mate bond pulling tighter, demanding acknowledgement she wasn't sure she could give. "I'm fine," she lied. "Don't." Theron's hand came to rest on her shoulder, gentle but firm. "Don't shut me out. Not after everything." Sage finally turned to face him. In the dying light, he looked almost otherworldly, silver eyes reflecting the sunset, power radiating from every line of his body. He was beautiful in the way predators were beautiful, deadly and magnetic and absolutely dangerous. And he was hers if she wanted him. That was the problem. "I felt it again today," Sage admitted quietly. "During training." "The bond. It's getting stronger, Theron. Harder to ignore." "Is that such a bad thing?" "Yes." The word came out harsh. "Because in 4 days, I'm going to walk into Shadow Peak Pack and destroy everything Connor built. I'm going to strip him of his power and watch him die slowly over months. I'm going to make Blake pay for murdering his father and framing me. I'm going to show that entire pack what happens when they stand silent while injustice is done." Sage's hands clenched into fists. "I'm going to become exactly the kind of monster they accused me of being. And you," her voice cracked. "You're too good for that. Too honorable. You deserve a mate who isn't consumed by revenge, who can stand beside you without darkness staining everything she touches." Theron was quiet for a long moment. Then he moved, backing Sage against the balcony railing with his body, caging her in with his arms. "Not threatening, protecting. Always protecting. You think I'm honorable?" His laugh was bitter. "Sage, I've ruled the North Realm for 300 years. Do you know how many wolves I've killed to maintain that rule? How many rebellions I've crushed? How many enemies I've buried in the ice?" Sage stared at him, startled. "I'm not some noble king from a fairy tale," Theron continued, his voice low and intense. "I'm a survivor who clawed his way to power and held it through blood and brutality. The only difference between me and the alphas who wronged you is that I choose my battles carefully. I make sure my violence serves a purpose." He cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Your revenge isn't darkness, Sage. It's justice. Connor sentenced an innocent wolf to death. Blake murdered his own father. Your entire pack participated in or allowed a miscarriage of justice so profound it demanded blood payment. You stripping Connor of his power isn't you becoming a monster, it's you delivering consequences to wolves who thought they were above them." "But I'll enjoy it," Sage whispered. "When I take his wolf, when I watch him realize what he's lost, I'm going to enjoy it, Theron." "What does that make me?" "Human. Wolf. Alive." Theron's thumbs brushed across her cheekbones. "You think I didn't enjoy watching my uncle scream before I killed him? The man who murdered my father and tried to steal the throne? You think I felt guilty about taking pleasure in his death?" Sage's eyes widened. Theron rarely spoke about his past. "I celebrated that kill for a week," Theron continued. "Through a feast. Drank until dawn. Because he deserved it, and I was alive to see justice done. That didn't make me a monster, Sage. It made me satisfied that the scales were finally balanced. How do you live with it? Sage asked desperately. How do you carry that and still be you? By knowing the difference between justice and cruelty, between necessary violence and sadism. Theron leaned his forehead against hers. You're not planning to torture Connor for sport. You're not going to hurt innocent pack members. You're going to use your power surgically, precisely, to punish the guilty and free yourself from the chains they put on you, the physical ones and the ones still wrapped around your heart. Sage closed her eyes, breathing in his scent. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. They tried to kill you. You survived. Now you're going to make sure they never hurt anyone else the way they hurt you. Theron pulled back enough to meet her gaze. And when it's done, when the debt is paid and justice is served, you're going to come back here. To me. And we're going to figure out what comes next. What if I can't? The fear that had been eating at Sage for weeks finally burst free. What if I go back there and see Connor and Blake and all of them, and something in me just breaks? What if I lose control and become the monster they said I was? Then I'll be there to bring you back. Theron's voice was absolute certainty. That's what mates do, Sage. We anchor each other. Balance each other. You think I don't have darkness in me that needs managing? You think 300 years of ruling hasn't left scars? He took her hand and pressed it against his chest, over his heart. You feel that? He asked. That's what you do to the darkness in me. You quiet it. Make it purposeful instead of destructive. And I'll do the same for you. When the revenge is done and the rage has burned itself out, I'll be here to remind you that you're more than what they made you. Tears burned Sage's eyes. I'm afraid of losing myself. I know. Theron kissed her forehead, tender and achingly gentle. But you won't. Because you're not alone anymore. The mate bond pulsed between them, warm and steady and undeniable. Sage made a decision. She reached up and pulled Theron's mouth down to hers, kissing him with everything she'd been holding back for weeks. All the fear and hope and desperate need for connection poured into that kiss. Theron responded immediately, his arms banding around her waist and lifting her against him. The kiss deepened, turned hungry, 5 months of careful restraint finally shattering. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Sage whispered against his lips, I can't complete the bond yet. I can't give you everything while I'm still so broken. But this, she kissed him again. This I can give you. My trust. My time. The possibility of us. That's enough, Theron said roughly. More than enough. Is it really? You've waited so long. And I'll wait longer if that's what you need. Theron set her down gently, but didn't release her. Sage, I'm 300 years old. I've learned patience. What I won't be patient about is keeping you safe. When we go to Shadow Peak, you follow my lead. You don't take unnecessary risks. You don't face them alone. Sage bristled. I'm not some helpless. You're powerful enough to level that pack if you lose control, Theron interrupted. That's exactly why you need someone watching your back. Not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to be dangerous, to them and to yourself. He had a point. Sage's power was still raw, her control good but not perfect. If Connor said the wrong thing, if he pushed the right buttons, she might lash out with more force than intended. Fine, she conceded. We do it your way. But Theron, when the moment comes, when I have Connor helpless in front of me, you let me be the one to take his power. I need to be the one who does it. I know. Theron's expression was fierce. This is your justice to deliver. I'm just there to make sure you survive delivering it. Sage leaned against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Strong. Steady. Reliable. For so long, she'd equated love with weakness. Connor had made her believe that opening her heart meant handing someone the power to destroy her. But this, what she felt growing with Theron, it didn't feel like weakness. It felt like strength multiplied. Like having someone who would stand in the fire with her instead of pushing her into it. Maybe that was what real mates were supposed to be. For more days, Sage said softly. Then we go. For more days, Theron agreed. And Sage, when we arrive, I want you to remember something. What? You're not the broken wolf they threw away anymore. His arms tightened around her. You're the Silver Queen standing beside the Alpha King. You're untouchable. Unstoppable. And every single wolf in that pack is going to see exactly what they lost when they chose to destroy you. Sage smiled against his chest, cold and sharp and absolutely merciless. Good, she said. Let them see. Let them understand. And let them live with the consequences of their choices. The war party assembled at dawn. 50 of Theron's elite warriors, each one a seasoned killer loyal to their king unto death. Marcus Ironjaw as second in command. And at the center of it all, Sage and Theron mounted on massive war horses bred for battle. Sage wore armor that Theron had commissioned specifically for her, black leather reinforced with silver, the metal responding to her power and making the armor virtually indestructible. Her hair was braided back in a warrior style. Twin silver daggers hung at her hips, though she barely needed physical weapons anymore. She looked every inch the warrior queen. Theron sat beside her on his black warhorse, dressed in the full regalia of the Alpha King, black armor etched with silver runes, a fur cloak that spoke of northern winters and ancient power, a silver circlet across his brow that marked him as royalty. Together, they were a vision of power that would make kingdoms tremble. Ready? Theron asked quietly. Sage looked toward the south, toward Shadow Peak Pack territory. Toward Connor and Blake and every wolf who'd watched her burn. She thought of the broken girl she'd been, chained in silver and left to die. She thought of the warrior she'd become. I've been ready for 6 months, Sage said, her voice cold as winter. Let's go remind them what happens when you try to bury a wolf with a silver-touched bloodline. Theron's smile was predatory. Ride out. The war party moved as one, a tide of muscle and steel and barely contained violence flowing south. Toward justice. Toward revenge. Toward the reckoning that Shadow Peak Pack had been too arrogant to see coming. Somewhere ahead, Connor was living his life as Alpha, confident that his greatest mistake was dead and buried. He had no idea that his execution was riding toward him with silver eyes and unstoppable power. He would learn soon enough. They all would. The Shadow Peak Pack sentries saw them coming from 2 miles away. 50 warriors riding in perfect formation, banners bearing the silver wolf crest of the North Realm snapping in the wind. At their head, 2 figures who radiated so much power that the very air seemed to bend around them. The sentries scrambled to sound the alarm. By the time Theron's war party reached the pack's outer boundary, half of Shadow Peak's warriors had assembled in defensive positions. They stood in ranks before the main gate, weapons drawn, faces pale with poorly concealed fear. An Alpha King didn't make social visits. He came for war, judgment, or both. Theron raised his hand, and the war party halted as one. Silence fell across the clearing, the kind of heavy, suffocating silence that preceded violence. Connor emerged from the pack house, flanked by Blake and the Council of Elders. He'd filled out in the 6 months since Sage last saw him, more muscle, harder edges, the weight of alpha responsibility aging him beyond his years. But his green eyes were the same. Cold. Calculating. Those eyes widened when they landed on Sage. The color drained from Connor's face. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. Blake actually stumbled backward, his hand going to the sword at his hip on pure instinct. Impossible, he breathed. She's dead. We left her. Chained in silver and left to die? Sage's voice cut across the clearing like a blade. She urged her horse forward, moving past Theron's front line until she sat alone between the 2 armies. Yes, Blake. You did. I remember every second of it. Her eyes found Connor's, and something in his expression crumbled. Sage, he whispered. You're alive. Disappointed. She dismounted in one fluid motion, her silver-lined armor catching the morning light. I know you watched me burn. Watched them drag me away. Told me I deserved every second of the pain. Did you sleep well these past 6 months, Connor? Or did you sometimes wake up wondering if maybe, just maybe, you'd made a mistake? Connor took a step forward, his face twisted with emotions Sage couldn't read: shock, disbelief, something that might have been guilt. How did you survive? The silver chains should have killed me. Sage smiled, cold and sharp. They should have. But I'm silver-touched, Connor. My bloodline is strong enough to survive what you meant to be my execution. And when Alpha King Theron found me dying on his border, he invoked the right of salvage. I've spent the last 6 months in the North Realm. Training. Healing. Becoming something you never anticipated. She let her power flare, just a pulse, just enough to make every piece of silver in the clearing resonate with her presence. Swords hummed in their sheaths. The warrior's armor vibrated. Even the silver jewelry worn by pack members began to glow faintly. The Shadow Peak wolves stumbled back in fear. Theron dismounted and moved to stand beside Sage, his presence a wall of lethal authority at her back. I am Alpha King Theron Silvercrest, ruler of the North Realm and adjudicator of pack law in 12 territories. I come bearing a formal complaint against Shadow Peak Pack for the wrongful execution of Sage Thornwood, Beta's daughter, who was found innocent of all charges. Innocent? Blake's voice was shrill with panic. She killed our Alpha. The evidence was fabricated, Theron interrupted, his voice like thunder. I had my investigators examine the case. The wolfsbane found in Sage's quarters was planted. The letters were forgeries, good ones, but forgeries nonetheless. And the witness, who claimed to see her standing over Alpha Roderick's body, has since confessed that you, Blake Blackwood, paid him to lie. Blake's face went white as snow. Connor's head snapped toward his brother. What? I have the signed confession, Theron continued, pulling a rolled parchment from his belt and tossing it to the ground between them. Blake Blackwood murdered his father using a poison that mimicked natural heart failure. When Sage discovered Alpha Roderick dying and tried to help, Blake saw an opportunity. He framed her, knowing that as Connor's mate, her execution would devastate you enough to make you weak. Easier to manipulate. Easier to control. That's a lie, Blake shouted, but his voice trembled. She killed him. I saw. You saw nothing because you were the one holding the poison cup. Theron's voice was absolute ice. And when Alpha Connor refused to question the evidence because he was blinded by grief and rage, you let an innocent wolf die rather than confess your crime. Connor stared at his brother, horror dawning on his face. Blake, tell me this isn't true. Tell me you didn't. Blake's silence was damning. Connor's hands clenched into fists. You killed father? You let me sentence Sage to death for your crime. She was weak. Blake suddenly snarled, desperation making him reckless. And Omega's daughter playing at being Luna. You needed a strong mate, not some pathetic. Connor's fist crashed into Blake's face with a sickening crunch. Blake went down hard, blood pouring from his broken nose. Connor stood over him, shaking with fury. I killed her. I sentenced my own mate to death because I trusted you. Because you were my brother and I believed. His voice broke. He turned to Sage, and she saw tears streaming down his face. Sage, I'm so sorry. He dropped to his knees. I should have listened. I should have believed you. I should have questioned the evidence. I failed you in every way possible, and I will spend the rest of my life. Stop, Sage said quietly. Connor fell silent, hope flickering in his eyes. Sage walked forward slowly, her boots crunching on the gravel, until she stood directly in front of Connor's kneeling form. She looked down at the man she'd once loved with all her heart. And felt nothing. No lingering affection. No forgiveness. Not even hate anymore. Just cold, perfect emptiness. You're sorry, she repeated, her voice soft. You failed me. You'll spend the rest of your life regretting it. She crouched down so they were eye level. Connor, do you know what I learned these past 6 months? He shook his head mutely. I learned that regret is cheap. Words are meaningless. You can be sorry all you want. It doesn't change the fact that you watched me burn and felt righteous about it. Sage's hand came up, her fingers hovering inches from Connor's cheek. You were my mate. My alpha. The one person who should have defended me against the world. And instead, you became my executioner. I know, Connor whispered brokenly. I know, and I will never forgive myself. But Sage, please, the mate bond is still there. I can feel it. We can fix this. I'll do anything. The bond is there because I haven't rejected you yet, Sage interrupted. I wanted you to feel it. Every day for 6 months, I wanted you to feel that pull toward a mate you thought was dead. I wanted it to haunt you. Drive you slowly mad with phantom longing for something you could never have. Connor's eyes widened in horror. Sage. But I'm done now. Sage stood, her power rising like a tide around her. I don't need you to suffer anymore, Connor. I don't need anything from you except for you to witness what you created. Her eyes began to glow brilliant blue-white. Connor tried to scramble backward, but Sage's power held him frozen. No. Sage, please don't. I, Sage Thornwood, silver-touched of the ancient bloodline, formally reject you, Connor Blackwood, as my mate. The words rang out across the clearing with the weight of absolute law. Our bond is severed. You are nothing to me. The mate bond snapped like an overstressed rope. Connor screamed, clutching his chest as phantom pain exploded through him. The severing of a mate bond was agonizing even when mutual. When one-sided, it was torture. He collapsed forward, gasping, his body convulsing. But Sage wasn't finished. She reached out with her power and found the bond between Connor and his wolf, that silver thread that made him alpha, that gave him strength and speed and authority. You sentence me to death by silver, Sage said, her voice echoing with supernatural resonance. So let me show you what silver really means. She gripped that bond with her power and pulled. Connor's scream became inhuman, raw, and animalistic. His eyes flashed between green and black as his wolf fought desperately to hold on. But Sage was relentless, her power absolute. The bond began to fray. Sage, stop. Elder Marcus lurched forward. You're killing him. I'm making him human, Sage corrected coldly. There's a difference. He'll live for a while. 6 months, maybe a year. Long enough to feel what it's like to be powerless. To be weak. To be the thing he despised most. Please, Connor gasped, blood trickling from his nose and ears. Sage, please, I'm sorry. So am I, Sage said. And she severed the bond completely. Connor's wolf disappeared. The alpha collapsed like a puppet with cut strings, his eyes going completely human, no flash of wolf, no inner glow. Just green eyes filled with horror as he realized what he'd lost. The entire pack felt it. The alpha bond that connected Connor to his wolves vanished, leaving a gaping void where authority and protection had been. Chaos erupted. Wolves began shifting involuntarily, their pack structure dissolving without an alpha to anchor them. Some fell to their knees, howling in distress. Others simply stood frozen in shock. Theron's warriors moved to defensive positions, ready for violence. But Sage raised her hand, and her power rolled out across the clearing, not attacking, but commanding. Every wolf present felt it, the weight of something ancient and unstoppable demanding their submission. One by one, they dropped to their knees. Even Connor, powerless and broken, felt the compulsion to bow. Only Theron remained standing beside Sage, his silver eyes blazing with pride and possession. Blake Blackwood, Sage's voice rang out. Come here. Blake, who'd been trying to crawl away during the chaos, froze. Sage's power wrapped around him like chains, invisible but unbreakable, and dragged him forward. He ended up on his knees at her feet, terrified. You killed your father, Sage said, looking down at him with cold disgust. You framed me for murder. You let your brother sentence his own mate to death to cover your crimes. I'm sorry, Blake babbled. Please, I'll confess everything, I I don't want your confession. Sage's hand shot out, gripping Blake's throat, not choking, just holding. I want you to experience what you did to me. Her power flared, and silver began to manifest around Blake's wrists. Real silver, summoned from nothing, forming chains identical to the ones they'd used on Sage. Blake screamed as the silver burned his skin. You wanted me dead in the Forbidden Forest? Sage's smile was vicious. Fine. That's where you're going. Chained in silver. Left to whatever finds you. But Blake, she leaned close. I'm not merciful like the moon goddess. Those chains won't kill you quickly. They'll burn and burn and burn, keeping you conscious and in agony until something finally ends it. No, Blake sobbed. Please no. Take him, Sage commanded, releasing her grip. Two of Theron's warriors hauled Blake to his feet and dragged him toward the horses. His screams echoed across the clearing until they stuffed a gag in his mouth. Sage turned back to the assembled pack. They stared at her with fear and awe in equal measure. Shadowpeak Pack, she announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the territory. Your alpha is gone. Your beta was a murderer. Your councils stood by and allowed injustice to flourish. By the authority granted to me by Alpha King Theron Silvercrest, I claim this pack under North Realm jurisdiction pending appointment of a new alpha. You can't, Elder Marcus started to protest. I can and I am, Sage interrupted. Unless you want to challenge me, I'm happy to demonstrate my power further. No one moved. No one spoke. Good. Sage gestured to Theron's warriors. Secure the territory. Any wolf who participated in my execution is to be questioned. Any wolf who stood by silently will answer for their cowardice. She looked down at Connor one last time. He stared up at her with empty, broken eyes, fully human now, with no wolf to give him strength or comfort. You asked me once what I would become if I survived, Sage said softly, just for him. You said I deserved the pain. The death. That I was a traitor who had to be eliminated. Connor's lips trembled. Look at me now, Connor. Really look. Sage spread her arms, power crackling around her. You didn't eliminate a traitor. You created a queen. And this queen is going to make sure no innocent wolf ever suffers what I suffered in this pack again. She turned her back on him, the ultimate dismissal, and walked toward Theron. The Alpha King was watching her with an expression that made Sage's breath catch. Not fear. Not disgust at the violence she'd just unleashed. Pride. Desire. Love. Is it done? Theron asked quietly. It's done, Sage confirmed. Then, softer, thank you. For being here. For letting me do what needed to be done. Always, Theron said, taking her hand. Behind them, Connor remained on his knees in the dirt, staring at his empty hands. The man who'd once been Alpha. Who'd once had everything. Now he had nothing. And that, Sage thought with cold satisfaction, was exactly what he deserved. The Shadowpeak Pack house had been transformed into a court of judgment. Theron's warriors lined the walls, their presence a silent reminder that this was no longer Connor's territory. The great hall where Sage had once attended pack celebrations now held something far grimmer, a trial. 23 wolves knelt in chains before the makeshift tribunal. Not silver, Sage reserved that cruelty only for those who'd used it on her. But iron was enough to keep them subdued and remind them they were prisoners, not pack members. These were the wolves who'd actively participated in her execution. The guards who'd beaten her. The council members who'd voted for her death without question. The witnesses Blake had paid to lie. Sage sat in the Alpha's chair, Connor's chair, with Theron standing to her right. Marcus Ironjaw stood to her left, holding the evidence scrolls. The rest of Shadowpeak Pack filled the hall, forced to witness what justice looked like when it came with teeth. Connor wasn't among them. He'd been taken to the healer's ward, his transformation into full human taking a severe toll on his body. Without his wolf to sustain him, he was weak, feverish, dying by inches. Sage felt nothing about that. Bring forward the first accused, she commanded. 2 warriors dragged Elder Marcus, not Theron's beta, but the Shadow Peak elder who'd presided over her trial, to the center of the room. The old wolf's face was gray with fear. "Marcus Ironwood," Sage said, her voice echoing through the hall. "You are head of the council that sentenced me to death. You heard my pleas for mercy, my claims of innocence, and you silenced them. Do you deny this?" The elder's jaw worked. "No, but the evidence was fabricated, as we've established." Sage leaned forward. "Tell me, Elder Marcus, did you question that evidence? Did you investigate independently? Or did you simply accept what Blake presented because it was easier than doing your job?" "Silence. Answer her." Theron's voice cracked like a whip. I trusted Blake," Marcus finally admitted. "He was the alpha son. I didn't think he would." "You didn't think," Sage interrupted. "That's the problem. A beta's daughter, someone you'd known her entire life, stood before you begging for her life, and you didn't think it was worth even asking questions. You just condemned her and went home to sleep." The elder's head dropped. "How do you judge him?" Theron asked Sage quietly. "This is your justice to deliver." Sage studied the broken old wolf before her. He'd failed her utterly. But he'd also been manipulated by Blake, blinded by trust in someone he thought was honorable. It didn't excuse what he'd done, but it complicated it. "Elder Marcus Ironwood, I strip you of your council position permanently," Sage announced. "You will serve the pack as Omega for the remainder of your days, the lowest rank, doing the work no one else wants. Every day, you'll remember that you put an innocent wolf in that position through your negligence." The old wolf's eyes widened with horror. For someone of his age and former status, Omega work was a humiliation worse than death. "But," Sage continued, "you will live. You will have the chance to earn redemption through service. Whether you take that chance is up to you." Relief and shame warred on Marcus's face as warriors hauled him away. The trials continued for hours. Each participant in Sage's execution was brought forward. Each was judged based on their level of involvement. The guards who'd beaten her received pack exile, sent away with nothing, forced to become rogues or seek acceptance in other territories. The witnesses who'd lied received the same Omega sentence as Elder Marcus, though Sage made sure they understood they were alive only because she chose mercy over justice. The council members who'd voted without question were stripped of authority and reduced to common pack members, their families' reputations destroyed. Through it all, the assembled pack watched in silence. Some faces showed relief that they hadn't been called forward. Others showed shame that they'd stood by and let injustice happen. And a few, just a few, showed something like approval. Finally, only one name remained. "Bring forward Lydia Blackwood," Sage commanded. A collective gasp rippled through the hall. Lydia was Connor and Blake's mother, the former Luna who'd retired after her mate's death. She entered the hall with her head high, defiant despite the chains, her gray hair still perfectly coiffed. She'd attended Sage's execution, had watched with cold eyes as her son sentenced his mate to death. Had said nothing. "Lydia Blackwood," Sage said, her voice harder than it had been all day. "You were Luna of this pack for 30 years. You taught me court manners when I was young. You welcomed me as your son's chosen mate. And then you stood silent while Connor condemned me and Blake framed me for your mate's murder." Lydia's chin lifted. "I believed my sons. A mother's duty." "A mother's duty is also to truth," Sage interrupted. "You knew Connor was making his decision from grief and rage. You knew he wasn't thinking clearly. One word from you, one request to delay the sentence, to investigate further, might have saved my life. But you said nothing. What would you have had me do?" Lydia demanded, anger breaking through her composure. "Question my son in front of the entire pack? Undermine his authority as new alpha?" "Yes." Sage's fist slammed against the armrest. "That's exactly what you should have done. Authority means nothing if it's used unjustly. You were Luna, Lydia. You had the power to demand better. Instead, you chose comfort over courage." Lydia's mask finally cracked. Tears filled her eyes. "I lost my mate. I couldn't bear to lose my sons by doubting them. So you let them murder me instead." The words hung in the air like an executioner's blade. "I'm sorry," Lydia whispered. "Sage, I'm truly sorry. If I could go back." "You can't." Sage stood, moving to stand directly before the former Luna. "None of you can. The past is written. All that remains is how you face the consequences." She studied Lydia's face, the woman who'd been like a second mother to her once. The woman who'd chosen her son's comfort over Sage's life. "Lydia Blackwood, I strip you of your Luna title permanently," Sage announced. "You will remain in Shadow Peak as a common pack member. But every full moon, you will stand before the pack and tell the story of what happened to me. You will speak the truth of Blake's crime and Connor's failure and your own silence. You will be the memory this pack carries forward, ensuring that what happened to me never happens to another innocent wolf." Lydia's face crumpled. That's worse than death." "Yes," Sage agreed coldly. "It is. Living with your failure, having to speak it aloud month after month, watching the younger generations learn from your mistakes, that's your punishment. Learn to bear it." As warriors escorted Lydia away, Sage returned to the Alpha's chair. She was exhausted, emotionally wrung out from hours of judgment and difficult decisions. But there was one more thing that needed to be done. "Shadow Peak Pack," Sage's voice rang out. "For 6 months, you lived under Connor's rule after my execution. Some of you believed I was guilty. Some of you had doubts but stayed silent. And some of you," her eyes swept the crowd, "knew I was innocent but did nothing to stop what happened." Uncomfortable shifting rippled through the assembled wolves. "I could punish you all," Sage continued. "I could strip this entire pack of its autonomy and rule you with an iron fist. But that would make me no better than those who wronged me." She stood, and her power flared, not threatening, but commanding absolute attention. "So here's what's going to happen. Shadow Peak Pack will become a protectorate of the North Realm. I will appoint a new alpha, someone who understands justice and mercy in equal measure. You will be given the chance to prove you've learned from this tragedy. But know this." Sage's eyes glowed brilliant blue-white. "I will be watching. If I ever hear of another innocent wolf being condemned without fair trial, if I ever learn of another miscarriage of justice in this territory, I will return. And next time, I won't be merciful. Next time, I'll burn this pack to the ground and scatter the survivors to the winds. Do I make myself clear?" "Yes, Lady Sage," the response came as a unified chorus. "Good." Sage looked to Theron. "Your Majesty, do you have a candidate for Alpha?" Theron smiled slightly. "I do. His name is David Thornwood, former Delta of Shadow Peak and Sage's cousin." Murmurs of surprise swept through the crowd. David stepped forward from where he'd been standing near the back, a tall, solid wolf in his 40s with kind eyes and Sage's father's bearing. David was the only high-ranking wolf who spoke against Sage's execution, Theron continued. He demanded a proper investigation. He called for mercy and delay. Connor demoted him to Omega for his trouble. David bowed to Sage, his expression solemn. "Cousin, I failed you. I should have fought harder." "You did what you could against an alpha drunk on grief and rage," Sage interrupted. "And you paid for it. That's more than most did." She studied him. "Can you lead this pack with fairness? Can you rebuild what Blake destroyed and Connor failed to protect?" "I can try," David said honestly. "I won't promise perfection. But I promise justice. Real justice, not the mockery we enacted against you." Sage nodded. "Then I name you Alpha of Shadow Peak Pack, subject to oversight by the North Realm. Your first act will be to investigate every member of Blake's network, find out who else knew about his crimes and stayed silent. It will be done." David accepted the charge with gravity. "Your second act," Sage continued, "will be to establish a new pack law. No wolf can be sentenced to death without evidence reviewed by at least 3 independent investigators. No execution can proceed without unanimous council approval. And any wolf has the right to appeal their sentence directly to the North Realm if they believe justice has been denied. These laws will be enacted immediately," David swore. Sage turned to the assembled pack one final time. You wanted to bury me. You wanted me to disappear, to become a cautionary tale about wolves who overreach. Instead, you created a queen. Remember that. Remember what happens when you mistake mercy for weakness. When you confuse justice with convenience. She walked toward the doors, Theron falling into step beside her. And remember, Sage called back without turning, that I survived your worst. Nothing you could ever do to me again would hurt as much as what you already did. I'm not afraid of you anymore. But you finally, she looked back, her eyes blazing with power. You should probably fear me. The doors closed behind them with finality. Later that night, Sage stood in what used to be her childhood room in the Beta's house. Everything was exactly as she'd left it, her clothes still in the wardrobe, her books still on the shelves, even the wildflowers she'd picked the day before her world ended, now dried and brittle in their vase. A time capsule of the girl she'd been. That girl felt like a stranger now. You handled that well, Theron said from the doorway. He'd given her space during the trials, but had stayed close enough to intervene if needed. Did I? Sage touched the dried flowers, and they crumbled to dust at her fingertips. I wanted to hurt them more, Theron. I wanted to make them bleed the way I bled. The only thing that stopped me was knowing you'd be disappointed. I wouldn't have been disappointed. Theron entered the room, moving to stand behind her. You showed restraint and wisdom, yes. But if you'd chosen harsher justice, I would have supported that too. They earned whatever you decided to give them. Then why do I feel hollow? Sage turned to face him. I got my revenge. Connor is powerless and dying. Blake is suffering in the forest where they left me. The pack that condemned me is broken and under new leadership. I won. So why doesn't it feel like winning? Theron cupped her face gently. Because revenge is empty, Sage. It's necessary sometimes, cathartic even. But it's not what heals you. It's not what makes you whole. Then what does? Deciding what comes next. Theron's thumb brushed across her cheek. You've spent 6 months becoming strong enough to face your past. Now you have to decide what kind of future you want. Sage leaned into his touch. I don't know what I want anymore. I thought revenge would give me clarity, but now I'm just tired. Then rest. Theron pulled her against his chest, and Sage went willingly, letting him hold her weight. You've been carrying this burden for so long. Let it go now. Let me carry you for a while. What if I can't let it go? Sage whispered into his shirt. What if I'm so broken that rage is all I have left? Then we'll find the other pieces together. Theron kissed the top of her head. But Sage, you're not broken. You're changed. There's a difference. Sage closed her eyes, breathing in his scent, letting his warmth seep into the cold places Connor's betrayal had left behind. For 6 months, she'd been focused entirely on becoming strong enough to face this moment. She hadn't let herself think about what came after. But now after was here, and she had choices to make. Take me home, Sage said quietly. To the North Realm. I'm done with this place. Are you sure? David might benefit from your presence while he establishes his authority. I'm sure. Sage pulled back enough to meet Theron's eyes. Shadow Peak is my past, Theron. Whatever my future is, it's not here. Theron's expression softened with understanding. Then we leave at dawn. And Sage. Yes. Your future doesn't have to be decided tonight. You have time. Time to heal. Time to figure out who you are when you're not defined by what was done to you. His fingers traced her jaw. Time to decide if what's growing between us is something you want to keep. Sage's heart clenched. The mate bond hummed between them, stronger than ever after she'd severed the one with Connor. Theron had been patient, had given her space and time, and never pushed for more than she could give. But she could feel his hope, his want. His desperate wish that she would choose him, not because of the bond, but because she wanted to. What if I'm never ready? Sage asked, voicing her deepest fear. What if Connor damaged me so badly that I can't ever give you what you deserve? Then we'll deal with that when and if it happens. Theron's conviction was absolute. But Sage, I've watched you survive the impossible. I've seen you transform from a broken wolf into something magnificent. If you can do that, you can heal from this too. And I'll be here for however long it takes." Sage stood on her toes and kissed him soft, grateful, full of emotions she couldn't yet name. When they parted, she whispered against his lips, "Take me home, Theron. And let's see who I become when I'm not fighting just to survive." "With pleasure, my queen." They left Shadow Peak at dawn, Sage never looking back. Behind her, Connor lay dying in the healer's ward, his last thoughts of the mate he'd destroyed. Behind her, Blake screamed in the forbidden forest, silver chains burning through flesh and bone. Behind her, a pack learned to live with the consequences of their choices. But ahead of her? Ahead was possibility. Growth. Maybe even love, if she could find the courage to reach for it. Sage had been buried in chains. She'd risen as a queen. Now it was time to discover what queens did with their power when revenge was done and the future was unwritten. Sage has delivered justice and is returning to the North Realm. But with revenge complete, what comes next? Can she heal enough to accept Theron's love? And what will she do with her power now that her enemies are defeated? 2 months later, the North Realm had changed in Sage's eyes. When she'd first arrived 6 months ago, dragged from death's door and chained in Theron's dungeons, this fortress had felt like a tomb. Cold stone. Endless shadows. The weight of ancient power pressing down from every angle. Now, standing on the highest balcony watching dawn paint the mountains gold, it felt like home. Sage didn't know when the shift had happened. Maybe it was gradual, weeks of walking these halls freely, training in the yards, eating in the great hall with warriors who'd become something like friends. Maybe it was the way Theron had given her an entire wing of the fortress to make her own, never pressuring, never demanding, just providing space for her to exist. Or maybe it was simpler than that. Maybe home had stopped being a place and started being a person. "You're up early." Sage smiled without turning. She'd felt Theron approach through the mate bond, that constant awareness of him that had only grown stronger since she'd severed her connection to Connor. Couldn't sleep, she admitted as he joined her at the railing. Too much thinking. Dangerous activity. Theron's shoulder brushed hers, the contact casual but deliberate. 2 months of slowly rebuilding trust, of gentle touches that asked rather than took. "What's troubling you?" "Nothing's troubling me." "That's the problem." Sage finally looked at him, taking in the sight that still made her breath catch. Theron in simple training clothes, hair loose around his shoulders, silver eyes soft in the early light. "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. For something to go wrong. But nothing does. And that scares you." "Terrifies me," Sage confessed. "Happiness feels like a trap, Theron. Like if I let myself have it, someone will rip it away again." Theron was quiet for a moment, his gaze distant. "After my uncle killed my father and I took the throne, I didn't sleep for 3 years." Sage's eyes widened. 3 years. "I was convinced that if I let my guard down for even a moment, someone would slip a knife between my ribs. That power was something you could only hold through constant vigilance." Theron's lips quirked. "I nearly worked myself to death maintaining control of something I'd already won." "What changed?" "My beta at the time, Marcus's predecessor, finally sat me down and asked me a question." Theron turned to face her fully. He asked, "What's the point of winning if you're too afraid to enjoy the victory?" The words hit Sage like a physical blow. "You won, Sage," Theron continued gently. "You survived what should have killed you. You became powerful. You delivered justice to those who wronged you. And now you're here, safe, with people who care about you and a future that's entirely yours to shape. When do you let yourself have that?" "I don't know how," Sage whispered. "Then learn." Theron's hand covered hers on the railing. "Let me teach you. Not how to fight or manipulate silver or deliver justice. You've mastered all of that. Let me teach you how to just be. How to exist without waiting for the next attack. How to trust that good things can last." Sage looked down at their joined hands. 6 months ago, she would have pulled away. would have convinced herself that accepting comfort was weakness, that letting someone in gave them power to hurt her. But Theron had proven, over and over, that he would never use that power against her. "Okay," she said softly. "Teach me." Theron's smile was radiant. "Come with me. There's something I want to show you." He led her deep into the fortress, down corridors she'd never explored, until they reached a pair of massive silver doors etched with ancient runes. Theron pressed his palm against the metal, and the doors swung open silently. Inside was a chamber that stole Sage's breath. It was a throne room, but not the public one where Theron held court. This was private, intimate. 2 thrones sat on a raised dais, carved from black crystal that seemed to contain entire galaxies. Silver veins ran through the stone like lightning frozen in time. The walls were covered in murals depicting the history of the Silver Crest Line battles, coronations, matings. "This is the true seat of North Realm power," Theron explained, his voice reverent. "Every Alpha King has brought their mate here to complete the bonding ceremony. My father and mother. My grandfather and grandmother. Back 1,000 years. Sage's heart hammered. "Theron, I'm not asking you to bond with me today," he interrupted quickly. "I'm showing you this because I want you to understand something. See those thrones?" Sage looked. They were identical in size and grandeur, neither subordinate to the other. "In the North Realm, mates rule as equals," Theron said. "The queen isn't some decorative figure who stands behind her king. She's his partner in everything. My mother led armies. My grandmother rewrote our legal code. My great-grandmother personally executed 3 would-be usurpers." He moved to stand beside the thrones, his hand resting on the back of one. "If you choose to complete this bond, Sage, you wouldn't become my Luna. You'd become my queen, with all the power and authority that entails. Half of the North Realm would be yours to rule as you see fit. My warriors would answer to you. My territories would be under your protection. You wouldn't be standing behind me. You'd be standing beside me." Sage stared at the empty throne, her mind reeling. That's not how most packs work. "Most packs are led by insecure alphas who fear powerful mates," Theron said bluntly. "I'm not most alphas. I've ruled alone for 300 years, Sage. I don't need a mate to validate my power or produce heirs or play political games. If I take a mate, if I take you, it's because I want a true partner. Someone who challenges me. Someone strong enough to tell me when I'm wrong and defend me when I'm right. Someone who makes me better just by existing." He crossed to where she stood frozen, taking both her hands in his. "You've spent your whole life being told you weren't enough. That you were too weak, too soft, too whatever nonsense they used to keep you small. Connor wanted a mate who would stand in his shadow and smile and never question him. That's why he couldn't handle who you really were." Theron's grip tightened. "But I've seen who you really are, Sage. I've watched you survive the impossible. I've seen you deliver justice without becoming cruel. I've felt your power and your compassion and your fierce, unbreakable will to keep going even when everything hurt. And I want all of it. The strength and the scars. The power and the vulnerability. The queen you've become and the woman you're still becoming." Tears burned Sage's eyes. "I'm still afraid." "I know. So am I." Theron's admission shocked her. "I'm afraid you'll never fully trust me. That Connor's betrayal cut so deep you'll always be waiting for me to do the same. I'm afraid that even if you accept the bond, part of you will always hold back. That I'll spend eternity loving you more than you can love me. Theron. But I've decided that loving you, even if you can't fully love me back, is better than not having you at all." His voice cracked slightly. "So I'm not giving you ultimatums or deadlines. I'm not demanding you make a decision today or next month or ever. I'm just telling you that this throne is yours if you want it. This life is yours. I am yours. Whenever you're ready. If you're ever ready." Sage looked into his silver eyes and saw the truth there, the vulnerability of a man who'd lived for centuries without ever opening his heart, now offering it to her with no guarantees. And she realized something profound. Connor's love had felt like a cage. beautiful but confining, with bars made of expectations and conditions. She'd always been performing for him, trying to be the mate he wanted instead of the person she was. But Theron's love felt like wings. Like he was offering her the sky and trusting her to come back not because she was trapped, but because she wanted to. That was the difference between possession and partnership. Between claiming someone and choosing them. "I can't promise I'll never be afraid," Sage said, her voice shaking. "I can't promise I'll be a perfect queen or that I'll never pull away when things get hard. I'm still learning how to be whole, Theron. Still figuring out who I am when I'm not just surviving." "I don't need perfect," Theron said. "I just need you. All of you, the healed parts and the healing parts and the parts that might never fully heal. That's enough." Sage took a deep breath. Then another. And then she made her choice. "I want to complete the bond," she said. "Not because I'm completely healed. Not because I'm not afraid. But because you've shown me that love doesn't have to feel like drowning. That I can be powerful and vulnerable at the same time. That I can trust someone without losing myself." Theron's eyes widened. "Sage, are you sure?" "You don't have to." "I'm sure." Sage rose on her toes, her hands framing his face. "I'm not ready to stand in front of a pack and have a public ceremony. I'm not ready for the politics and expectations that come with being queen. But this," she pressed her palm over his heart, feeling it thunder beneath her touch. "Us, in this moment, choosing each other because we want to, not because of duty or tradition or ancient bonds we didn't ask for. This I'm ready for." "Then let me do this right," Theron said, his voice rough with emotion. He dropped to one knee before her. Sage's breath caught. "Sage Thornwood, silver-touched, survivor, warrior, and the other half of my soul." Theron looked up at her with absolute devotion. "Will you complete the mate bond with me? Will you become my queen, not because I'm commanding it or the moon goddess demands it, but because you choose it? Because you choose me?" Tears streamed down Sage's face. "Yes, I choose you, Theron. I choose us." Theron surged to his feet and kissed her. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was claiming and being claimed simultaneously, a collision of mouths and breath and two souls finally admitting what they'd both known for months. The mate bond exploded between them. Power flared silver and blue-white light filling the chamber until the ancient murals seemed to come alive. The bond that had been hovering uncompleted for so long finally snapped into place, forging a connection so deep and complete that Sage gasped. She could feel Theron's emotions as if they were her own, his fierce joy, his overwhelming love, his relief that she'd finally let him in completely. And through the bond, Theron felt hers the lingering fear, yes, but also the hope, the affection, the growing certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, something fundamental had shifted. Sage felt it immediately. Her power was stronger, enhanced by the bond. And Theron's eyes glowed brighter, his own strength amplified by her presence. Mates were meant to complete each other. Make each other more. "How do you feel?" Theron asked, his forehead pressed to hers. "Whole," Sage whispered, amazed. "For the first time since Connor destroyed me, I feel whole." "Good." Theron pulled back enough to meet her eyes. "Because now comes the hard part." "Hard part?" "Being happy." His smile was teasing, but serious underneath. "Learning to wake up every day and not wait for disaster. Trusting that this is real and permanent and yours to keep." Sage laughed, surprised by the sound, by how light it felt. "Think you can teach me that? I have 300 years of experience in being stubborn. We'll figure it out together." Together. Such a simple word, but it meant everything. 6 months later. The coronation of Queen Sage Silvercrest was witnessed by representatives from 12 territories. She stood before the assembled pack in the public throne room, wearing armor of silver and black crystal that marked her as both warrior and royalty. Her hair was unbound, falling in dark waves to her waist. Her eyes glowed with barely contained power, the silver-touched bloodline fully awakened and under complete control. Beside her, Theron looked every inch the Alpha King, proud, powerful, and absolutely devoted. By the ancient laws of the North Realm, Theron's voice rang out, "I present my mate and equal, Queen Sage Silvercrest, silver-touched of the ancient bloodline, protector of the innocent, and ruler of the North." The assembled wolves dropped to their knees, not in submission, but in respect. Sage looked out over the crowd and saw faces she recognized. David was there, representing Shadow Peak Pack, which had thrived under his fair leadership. Marcus Ironjaw stood at attention, having become something like a friend over the months. Other alphas and betas from territories across the realm had come to witness this moment. Even a few wolves from Shadow Peak who defended her during the trial stood among the crowd, tears streaming down their faces. But Sage's attention caught on one figure in the back. Connor. He looked terrible, gaunt, aged beyond his years, his human body struggling to survive without his wolf. He'd been granted permission to attend as a witness, nothing more. Their eyes met across the crowded hall. Sage felt nothing. No lingering pain. No rage. Not even pity. Just nothing. He was a chapter of her life that was closed. A cautionary tale about what happened when power was wielded without wisdom. She was so far beyond him now that he might as well have been a stranger. Sage turned her attention back to Theron, who was watching her with a question in his eyes. "Are you okay?" Through their bond, she sent back warmth and certainty. "I'm perfect." And she meant it. The ceremony concluded with Sage and Theron sitting on their thrones side by side, equal in every way, while the pack pledged their loyalty and service. When it was finally over and they retired to their private chambers, Sage collapsed onto their bed with a groan. "That was exhausting," she said. "How do you do that regularly?" "Practice." Theron joined her, pulling her against his chest. "You'll get used to it." "Will I?" Sage looked up at him. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is my life. That I went from dying in a forest to being queen of the North Realm." "Believe it." Theron kissed her forehead. "You earned every bit of it." Sage settled against him, listening to his heartbeat. "Do you think Connor will survive much longer?" "Months, maybe. The separation from his wolf is killing him slowly." "I should feel something about that." "Guilt, maybe. Satisfaction. But I don't." "That's growth," Theron said gently. "You've moved past revenge into indifference. That's when you know you're truly healed, when they don't matter enough to even hate anymore." Sage thought about that. He was right. Connor had once been her entire world. His betrayal had shattered her. But now? Now he was just a footnote in the story of who she'd become. "Thank you," Sage said quietly. "For what?" "For finding me in that forest. For giving me time to heal. For teaching me that love doesn't have to hurt." She tilted her head up to look at him. "For being patient enough to let me find my way back to myself." Theron's expression softened. "Thank you for surviving. For fighting through the pain and becoming this magnificent, impossible woman. For choosing me when you had every reason to never trust another alpha again." "I love you," Sage said, the first time she'd spoken the words aloud. Theron's eyes blazed. "I love you too. More than 300 years of life prepared me for." They kissed, slow and deep and full of promise. When they parted, Sage smiled, genuine, unforced, the kind of smile she thought she'd never have again. "So what now?" she asked. "I've gotten my revenge. Become a queen. Found love. What does a silver-touched queen do with the rest of her immortal life?" Theron grinned. "Anything she wants. Rule with wisdom. Train new warriors. Maybe travel to territories that need help with justice. Or wake up every morning beside her mate, drink tea on balconies, and simply be happy." Theron's hand traced her jaw. "The extraordinary thing about surviving the impossible, Sage, is that you earn the right to ordinary happiness. And sometimes that's the greatest victory of all." Sage thought about the girl she'd been, the one who thought happiness meant being chosen by an alpha, who measured her worth by others' approval. She thought about the woman she'd become: powerful, independent, whole. "I like the sound of that," Sage said. "Ordinary happiness with extraordinary you. Then that's what we'll have." And they did. Epilogue. 3 years later. Sage stood in the awakening chamber, watching as a young female wolf, barely 19, covered in silver burns from an unjust execution, gasped her way back to consciousness. "Easy," Sage said gently, kneeling beside the girl. "You're safe now. I'm Queen Sage Silvercrest. My mate found you dying at our border." The girl's eyes widened with recognition and terror. "The Silver Queen? I've heard stories. All true, probably." Sage smiled. "You're silver-touched. Like me. Your bloodline saved your life, but you'll need training to control it." "My pack tried to kill me," the girl whispered. "They said I was cursed." "They were fools." Sage helped her sit up. "But you're not cursed. You're powerful. And if you want, I'll teach you to use that power. To make sure no one ever hurts you like that again." Hope flared in the girl's eyes. "You do that?" "For me. I do it for every silver-touched wolf we find," Sage said. "You're the 7th this year. There's a whole training program now. A sanctuary for wolves who've been wronged by their packs." She stood and held out her hand. "So, what do you say? Ready to learn what it means to rise from the ashes?" The girl took her hand without hesitation. As Sage led her out of the chamber toward her new life, Theron was waiting in the corridor. He smiled when he saw them. "Another one?" he asked. "Another one saved," Sage corrected. "Another wolf who'll never have to be a victim again." Theron's pride shone through their bond. "My queen, changing the world one rescued wolf at a time." "Our world," Sage corrected, taking his hand. "We do this together, remember? Always." They walked through the fortress together, king and queen, mates and equals, two wolves who'd found each other in the darkest moment and built something extraordinary from the ashes of betrayal. Behind them, a young wolf took her first steps toward power and healing. Ahead of them, countless other wolves waited to be saved. And in the Shadow Peak Pack territory, Connor Blackwood took his last breath, his final thought a regret for the queen he'd destroyed and created in equal measure. But Sage didn't feel his death through any lingering connection. She was too busy living to worry about those who'd tried to bury her. They'd chained her in silver and left her to die. She'd survived. She'd thrived. She'd become a legend. And every wolf in every territory learned the same lesson. Never mistake mercy for weakness. Never confuse silence for acceptance. And never, ever try to bury a wolf whose bloodline remembers what it means to be silver, beautiful, unbreakable, and absolutely deadly when given cause. From chains to crown. From victim to queen. Sage's story of survival, revenge, and love just changed the werewolf world forever. But this is only the beginning. Blue heart like this video if Sage's revenge satisfied your soul. Bell subscribe and hit that bell. Speech balloon comment your favorite moment. I read every single one. Stick around for the next 60 seconds. I'm revealing the title of Sage's next adventure and giving you an exclusive sneak peek you can't miss. The Silver Queen has risen. Now watch her rule. Crown Wolf Ace High Voltage.